Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. We are going to talk about creativity and emotional intelligence. And one of my methods of creativity is creating PowerPoint presentations. I don't know about you, but I love creating PowerPoint presentations. It's just so fun to find images and put things together and create something from scratch. And feel free to use the chat box. We'll use the chat box to type in comments, to type in questions, etc. Afia, all the way from Dubai. That's very cool. Glad you're here. Thanks for being here. Okay, so let's jump in with and start with a poll. So the poll that I have for you is really to think about you and how creative you view yourself. And I think this is an interesting kind of way to start. And so let's just see what you think. So, which of the following best describes you? Uh, couldn't create my way out of a paper bag. Don't see yourself creative at all in any sense of the word. A bit creative, a kind of creative, pretty creative, or creativity oozes out of my pores. Uh, just very creative in everything you do. And then maybe there's another response that I haven't thought of, and so I'm very curious to hear what that might be. So please feel free to type that into the chat box. Got one person out of 20 who said couldn't create my way out of a paper bag. We've got 3 people say they're a bit creative. We've got 5 people say kind of creative. 10 say pretty creative. And really just one, creativity oozes out of my pores. And if I were to respond, I would probably say creativity oozes out of my pores. You can see musical instruments behind me. I'm musical, and I like to create things and take things that are used for other purposes and figure out a way to use those in different ways. Okay, so there's about 2 of us on the call that say creativity oozes out of our pores. So this is interesting. So the way that we view ourselves has something to do with creativity. And so we want to think about that and think about, uh, do we want to be more creative? Why would we want to be more creative? What is creativity anyway? And then, of course, what is the relationship with emotional intelligence? So we'll take a look at some of these issues. We'll get you. Judith started fibbing, so you started to be creative with the truth at a young age to try to stay out of trouble. Okay, awesome. Robin tap dances to the washing machine. Awesome. I love that. And probably if we asked all the things that you do that are creative, we'd have a long list. And so that's awesome. So here's an assumption that I want to kind of check out. I think that how we view ourselves, how we regard ourselves as either a creative person or not a creative person, influences our ability to be creative. And I just want to check that out as we continue on and go along. Just sort of ask for your opinion on this and what do you think about this? What do you think about this idea of viewing yourself as creative or not creative? I'm going to send you off into breakout rooms to talk about this for a moment or two, and then we'll carry on. So here's our first opportunity to meet a new colleague, possibly, and chat for a minute or two about how you view yourself as either creative or not creative. Welcome back, everyone. I hope that was an interesting conversation, and a couple of quick comments based on that conversation. What came up in that discussion?
I know what we discussed or what I mentioned was I view myself as a little bit creative, or no, pardon me, very creative. And as a consequence or as a benefit, it gives me the permission to be creative. Because I think of myself that way, then I'm like, okay, I may as well create.
Isn't that interesting? Andrea.
What's really interesting is that I work with Susan and Kavork, and we were all different. Like creativity is as different and is expressed through us as different as we are. And it's just a lovely way, because Susan is more voice, Kavork drums. It's just so beautiful that we all have an expression of who we are, and how important that side is, no matter what you do.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Andrea. And Jennifer, would you be willing to share what you shared with me? I liked it.
Oh, yes, yes, of course. I was just saying that my general view of self is can't create my way out of a paper bag. But I've had somebody come in and present me with their creativity, which was art, which I've always seen as the ultimate sign of creativity is art and music to me. And I was praising them and just saying how fantastic it was and how I'm not creative. And he was able to flip that around on me and say, well, look at what you do in your work with people, and that's a form of creativity, and just reframed creativity for me, which is kind of, I think, Andrea, what you were saying, how everyone sees creativity differently. And also, as you were saying that, I will add that in terms of a communicator, I'm a ideas style communicator, which I guess is also that creativity. So
Awesome. And this was really one of the things I was hoping was going to come out of this conversation is it's kind of shifting our view of creativity. And I thought it would be interesting to take a look and see what is the definition of creativity anyway? What is the dictionary definition of creativity? And here's something that I came up with. It's the use of the imagination. Or original ideas, especially in the production of an artistic work. So yes, especially in the production of an artistic work, and so that's generally where our minds frequently go when we think about creativity. But it doesn't have to be. I like this idea of the use of the imagination, and isn't that interesting that the use of the imagination comes up so frequently in so many things? For example, what that made me think of was, hey, I actually remember attending a presentation by a guy named Gray Ponell, and he and Norm Amundsen, some of you may know that name. He's quite well known in the Lower Mainland as the career guy. He was a professor at the university and did a lot of work in the area of career counseling. And together, these guys wrote a book called Hope-Filled Engagement. And really what they were trying to do was help people to have hope. And in order to have people to have hope, they started by teaching them using a simple exercise, how to use their imagination. So I'm going to teach it to you, and then you're going to practice it. Here's the exercise. And the exercise is that I'm going to put you in triads to the best of my ability. Some of you will end up in dyads, and decide who's going to be A, B, and C. The first person picks an object, any object. Can be, just look around, is it a pen, notebook, cup, whatever you see on your desk or in front of you. And then person B is going to mention a person. It's going to be a firefighter or a jet pilot or a gardener or just a baby, a toddler, a teenager, a millennial, whatever kind of person you can think of. And then the person C, or if there's just a dyad, then of course go back to person A again. They're going to say, what could that thing possibly be to that person? The example here is a cell phone to a baby is a pacifier, because they're just going to take it and stick it in their mouth. So what are the possibilities here? There's no wrong answers, and try to avoid the obvious answer. A cell phone to a baby is something to communicate on? No, not to a baby. So what could it possibly be? And this is one of the exercises that they use to teach people who feel kind of hopeless to demonstrate that they actually have an imagination that can be used. So we have to use our imagination for this exercise. So let's give it a shot. Let's give it a try. I will share this slide in the breakout room so you can see it while it's going on. But let's get you into triads first, and we'll give it a shot for let's say maybe 10 minutes. All right. So what came up in that exercise? So what else came up in your conversation trying that exercise out? Susan.
We were just sort of, it was fun. And we were just thinking at the end if we were feeling more creative at the end of it.
Hmm.
And so one of the group was saying she was stretching herself as we went through it, and we got cut off on the other one. But I thought it was interesting that that was just a good experiment to see how far you could go outside of the predictable.
Okay, great.
We had a conversation about perspective and perspective, interpretation, encoding of information, whether it be visual or communication. And then we talked a little bit about droodles. Have you ever heard of droodles? I actually happen to have on hand a book of droodles, but it's these little pictures that I could probably draw, being not a creative person. And what are they and what do they mean? And it's something different for everyone, and that ability to be creative. So that was fun.
Awesome. That's fantastic. What else? Did the exercise work? Did you feel like that exercise demonstrated that you can use your imagination? Yeah?
It definitely stretches your thinking muscle in a way you don't normally do.
Absolutely. And that's the point. Thanks, Katie. Yeah, Andrea.
So I got to work with Corinne and Anne, and something, Anne, I don't know if you want to pop in and share your silliness comment, but it was really brilliant.
I think we lose sometimes. Can only speak for myself. Is as a kid, for example, what kid isn't creative? What kid doesn't use their imagination for the most part? But I think there's an element of silliness to that. That as adults, it's perception. How are people going to look at me if I'm silly? So that was. Did I capture it? Because I didn't hear myself speaking, Andrea. So there's that.
And the idea, like it was almost harder to come up with something fun that is so natural that we love doing. We love doing this thing, but it's harder because we're so conditioned to deliver what's expected, to be buttoned up as adults.
Yeah. Love that.
Absolutely. And
Love
I'm
that.
so glad that word fun came up because I found this. So apparently, Albert Einstein said that creativity is intelligence having fun. I love that. This is, us using our intelligence, that capacity for purposive behavior, to have fun, and come up with the unexpected, come up with that, and I love that you mentioned children because who does imagination better? Who unabashedly creates better than children? And just watching toddlers interacting with each other and young kids. Yeah, it's like talk about an object becoming something. Imagine all the objects that toddlers pick up and immediately start playing with. All of a sudden, an orange becomes a spaceship, or whatever, and so we have to somehow drop some of those limitations that we put on ourselves in order to be creative. I found this online too. So it's one of the wonderful things about doing these webinars is you start looking around and you find things. And so this is from Ken Robinson. If you haven't heard his TED Talk or read his book, it's absolutely fantastic. And he makes the argument that we really need to shift our education system towards encouraging the use of creativity far more. Number one, creativity is multidisciplinary. You can use creativity in every discipline, in every industry sector, in every meeting, in every interaction, in every project. It goes on and on and on in terms of what you can create from what you have. Now, some people frown upon creative accounting, but it just and we normally think of creative accounting as trying to cover something something up or trying to do something illegal. But again, when you think about an accountant, they have to create a file. They have to create a way of looking at numbers. And again, as long as it's legal, it shouldn't be a bad thing. Number two, creativity allows you to express yourself, and I think that was you, Andrea, that mentioned that in one of your first comments. It's like, yes, let's focus on self-expression. How do we express ourselves out into the world? How do we become known by others? How can we encourage that and support that idea? So that self-expression is critical and important. Creativity promotes thinking. Absolutely, it does. When we're stuck, we're often stuck in a perspective. How do we get out of that perspective? Creativity. We have to use our imagination. We have to imagine a different perspective, which is being creative in so doing. Number four, creativity reduces stress and anxiety. Isn't that interesting? When we're, stressed and feeling anxious, we're focused on whatever is stressing us and creating anxiety for us, and then getting involved in creativity, even if it is, going to some of our go-to activities. For me, it's playing the guitar or, trying to write a song or something like that. But it can get us out of that focus on the stress or the anxiety. Again, it's whatever works, whatever can work for you. Creativity allows you to enter your happy zone and have fun. I love that. And Albert Einstein said it. So, comes from a pretty good source that this is about having fun. Not always. Sometimes we have to come up with a creative solution and it doesn't feel fun. And I think that's okay too. But we have to kind of just allow whatever to be. Creativity gives you a sense of purpose. Yeah, absolutely. Sometime if you're setting out to do something, for me, it's frequently, I want to write a song. I want to have a finished product. I want to have a song at the end of my, adventure into creativity. And so it does give me a sense of purpose. For other people, it's a solution to a problem. For other people, it's maybe a different perspective. For other people, it's some sort of a work of art, or perhaps perhaps it's building something. Creativity leads to feelings of accomplishment and pride. Can link you to others with the same passion. Creativity improves your ability to focus. Creativity promotes risk-taking and iteration. And yeah, it's an iterative process. I don't know that I have ever in my life sat down, wrote a song, and never gone back and changed it or corrected it or modified it in some way. It's an iterative process. So you do the thing once, and then you go back and you look at it again. You improve upon it. You make it better. You change it. You modify it. Creativity is a prerequisite for innovation. Absolutely. We used to do creativity workshops, and we used to differentiate between creativity, which is putting something we used to define it as putting something into the world that wasn't there before, which is one definition, and innovation, which is the application. So creativity in and of itself may or may not be useful in terms of applying it to a particular situation or issue or challenge that you're facing, but applying that, having an application in an organization, in business, makes it innovation. You are innovating, finding new ways of doing things, improved ways of doing things, and of course creativity is a prerequisite. And then 12, creativity encourages us to be lifelong learners. Absolutely, whatever you do, if it starts to get monotonous, think of a creative new way of doing it that is fun for you, and just to keep things interesting, keep you interested in what it is that you do. Okay, so you've seen this image before. I use it frequently. It's just a reminder for why we talk about emotional intelligence, that our brains process emotions in one part of the brain, logic and reason in another part of the brain, and those two parts work together always. And isn't it interesting that that sometimes when we don't think we're creative, or we get stuck in a perspective, that emotional part of our brain is actually trapping us and prevent acting as a barrier to us using our logic and applying our reason. And so for this reason, I sometimes say that you've probably heard there's multiple intelligences, and maybe there are, but I kind of think there's one intelligence, and it happens to be emotional. That we don't use logic and reason without emotion, and so it's critical and important that we understand more about how to be intelligent about emotions, and for that we need models, and most of you know about this model here. This is the model that we use in our work, originally created in the early 80s, one of the most researched models in the world, but it's a model of skills and competencies, and I thought it would be interesting to look at which skills and competencies have an interesting relationship with creativity. Obviously, they all do. I could make the argument that every single one of these 15 distinct competencies, emotional competencies, actually play a role in creativity, but I've singled some out. So I'm going to take a quick look at those with you. So I was thinking about self-regard, change your limiting belief about you not being creative. List all the things you create every day. You create your day, you create your schedule, you create the interaction that you have with your clients, with your customers, you create your meetings, you create the projects that you have from the component parts that you've got. We're always and constantly creating. We need to kind of see that we help our clients to come up with creative solutions. We are creative, even if we don't have a bunch of oil paints spread around or a bunch of musical instruments in the background. We are creative individuals. We can't not create. And so I just want to, nudge you and your self-regard. For those of you who said that you're not very creative off the top, you probably are far more creative than you give yourself credit for. So let's give ourselves some credit for that. The next one that I was thinking about was emotional self-awareness. Let's become more aware of those emotions that limit our ability to be creative, and be able to express those and say, hey, which of course is in emotional expression, and what are all the creative ways you could express your emotions? Are you expressing those limiting beliefs to others so that you can free yourself from them? So again, what is a way that you can create that really does express how you're feeling in any given moment? Sometimes it's joy, and that creative expression will be about that joy. Other times it will be about grief or loss or sadness, and all of those are I just think we have this incredible palette to paint with, to use in our creativity, and everything is included in as options for us to use in our creativity. Then I found this guy riding this dinosaur bicycle. I thought, wow, what are all the ways you can express your independence through your creativity? And some of you may have heard me say this before, but I think it's so interesting that we human beings have this kind of common need to belong. At the same time, so we have a need to belong and fit in, but we also have a need to stand out all at the same time. And that standing out, that's our independence wanting to be expressed. And so how can we creatively express our independence that's going to be unique to us? Empathy. So here's a question for you. How can empathy help you be creative? And I'm just going to send you off for 5 minutes to discuss this one, because this is just too good of a question to not discuss with somebody else. So let's try this. So what does it mean to use empathy, or how can empathy support our ability to be creative? Let's try this for 5 minutes.
So, I work with Corinne. So Corinne, you had a different take too. I don't know if you're comfortable sharing. For me, it was about the collaborative space. meeting someone and that perspective from um, meeting someone and being in that space of shared connection, shared experience, shared feeling for collaboration.
Awesome.
And for me, it was more like stepping into their shoes, experiencing it differently so that it opens up different possibilities, like a
Yeah,
perspective change,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, and there's not a
We
correct
also
answer here. It's like there's different answers. So Kavork.
we also came
Yeah,
up
I
with
shared.
that if
Go
you
ahead.
put
Sorry.
yourself in their shoes, you can be more compassionate and come up with other ideas to help get them through find a solution to their need at that moment. If you
Yeah,
picture yourself being in that position.
yeah, absolutely, Sheila. Kavork?
Yeah, yeah. We just shared. Just Rebecca and I. We just shared. We were just making reference to the Brene Brown video around empathy, and just knowing that when you're, in that space and listening without judgment or not judging, just being able to adapt yourself with what's going on in the moment and allowing them to express themselves, and being empathetic, being in the moment, but just having the ability to sort of shift and change when we need to, right? In that creative space, yeah.
Awesome.
Uh,
Awesome. And I was kind of thinking along the lines of, okay, so I'm trying to create something. What if I put myself in the shoes of, so for again for in the using the example of music, if I'm trying to write a song, what if I put myself in the place of the listener? What do they want to listen to? What's going to be unique or interesting or enjoyable for them as a someone who is experiencing my creation? So again, lots of different ways that you can tie empathy to creativity, and no correct or wrong answers there. Just interesting how these various emotional skills can support creativity. Here's some problem solving, and of course, creativity can help us to come up with creative solutions to those emotional barriers that are really part of what we mean when we talk about problem solving with respect to emotional intelligence. It's all about the procrastination. How do we overcome procrastination? How do we overcome the worry or the avoidance or the overwhelm that can hamper our ability to come to an effective solution efficiently? So again, creative solutions to working our way through the emotions. Reality testing. This is an interesting one. Found this person using a virtual reality headset. I've never tried this, by the way. I'm curious to try this virtual reality, but really it's so interesting in terms of the idea that people are creating a reality, and we kind of create our own reality just through our perception of reality. And so, what's real and what have we created in terms of what's the story we've told ourselves? What are, how are we putting our creativity onto our perception of reality? It's all a very interesting conversation, and I'm sorry we don't have more time to explore some of these things because it's really interesting to think about. Flexibility, right? How can we be flexible and again see things from lots of different perspectives, see things in many different ways, not get attached to any one particular type of outcome, and flexibility and creativity. I think they're just really hand in glove in terms of their relationship with each other. Optimism. Just think for a moment of trying to be creative but not being optimistic. it's it's like you're gonna sabotage yourself if you don't see that this is gonna work out, that you're gonna actually achieve your goal, that you're gonna come to that end point that it's going to work for you, that's going to be useful and meaningful and applicable and relevant, then you're going to hamper your own ability to be creative once again, and I think we do this frequently. I think that it's certainly part of what it is that we do. So that. These are some of the things that I plan to tell you. We've got a few minutes left, and so just based on this bombarding you with all this information, what are some of your comments or observations or feedback? I'm really curious and interested to hear from you in our remaining couple of minutes.
What really resonated is that not to define it's we're only limited in our creativity by the way we think about it, and it's our own belief system. Like it's because, as you said, like whether I'm in Excel graphing something and it matters to me how how the colors align. Like that was always really important. So, but we don't think of it like that. So, again, we're only limited to the degree that we limit it. But if we free up the the parameters of what makes us creative, we might surprise ourselves.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thanks, Andrea. What else? Who else would like to sort of sum up our brief discussion of creativity and emotional intelligence?
Me, the takeaway was what Anne said. If we allow ourselves to be creative, we exercise that, right? We are becoming more and more creative. So it's all within us to let ourselves.
Absolutely, yeah. We got to drop that belief that we have to be professional or that we have to be adult or that we have to, be serious or whatever it is, and just allow ourselves to be those little kids. What would a group of little kids do with the problem that we're facing at work? How could you play with it in order to find, to get out of maybe a perspective that people are stuck in? Awesome. Thanks, Katie. Anything else? Francine.
Sorry, for me, it was really about it was really get the connection between the empathy and creativity. I really had a hard time with that. My partner Jennifer helped me out, but every other aspect, as I got older, matured, and realized that because in my younger days, if you had asked me if I was creative, I'd say absolutely not in a million years, because I associated it with art, with being able to draw, color, paint, do all those artsy things, and I'm not that. But as I matured, I realized that there are tons of different ways to be creative that people don't see them as creative, but I do now. But that empathy one, for me, was my kind of aha moment today.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thanks, Francine. Kavork, you had a comment.
Yeah, I did. I'm just looking at all the EQ competencies now. I could see them a little differently, like how to be more effective. It's feeling that we're stuck. Well, how could I be creative in my level of assertiveness or skill up my game in that area? Yeah, that's where I went.
Great. Thanks, Kavork. Excellent. Well, thanks everyone so much for being here.